Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pragna channel. Today, we are going to continue with the reading of Sophie's World, an introduction to Western philosophy by Jostein Gaarder. And we have already done 7 reading sessions. Today, we are going to the 8th reading session. We are joined in the panel today by SK Haru. SK Haru, welcome to the panel.
Hello, Andy.
Hello. And we will start. The book is available as PDF online. It's free, so anybody can download it and read it. So we are also joined by Sikshardin Garu in the panel. Hello, sir.
Sir,
Welcome to
hello,
the
sir.
panel.
Hello, SK.
Siksha.
Welcome to the panel.
Yes,
So we're
hello,
going to
everybody.
start with SK Garu's reading of page number 62. That we are starting to compare the theories of philosophies of Aristotle and Plato, basically. So this particular subchapter is called No Innate Ideas. So
All
we
right,
had
sir.
a bit of a discussion last time about this. This time we'll start there and we'll continue the reading. So over to SK Garu, basically. And Sikshadin Garu, but if you want to read, we'll give it to you in the middle also. So let's start with SK Garu and then we'll proceed.
Okay. No innate ideas. Like the philosophers before him, Plato wanted to find the eternal and immutable in the midst of all change. So he found the perfect ideas that were superior to the sensory world. Plato, furthermore, held that ideas were more real than all the phenomena of nature. First came the idea horse, then came all the sensory world's horses trotting along like shadows on a cave wall. The idea chicken came before the chicken and the egg. Aristotle thought Plato had turned the whole thing upside down. He agreed with his teacher that the particular horse flows and that no horse lives forever. He also agreed that the actual form of the horse is eternal and immutable. But the idea horse was simply a concept that we humans had formed after seeing a certain number of horses. The idea or form horse thus had no existence of its own. To Aristotle, the idea or the form horse was made up of the horse's characteristics, which define what we today call the horse species. To be more precise, by form horse, Aristotle meant that which is common to all horses. And here the metaphor of the gingerbread mold does not hold up because the mold exists independently of the particular gingerbread cookies. Aristotle did not believe in the existence of any such molds or forms that, as it were, lay on their own shelf beyond the natural world. On the contrary, to Aristotle, the forms were in the things because they were the particular characteristics of these things. So Aristotle disagreed with Plato that the idea chicken came before the chicken. What Aristotle called the form chicken is present in every single chicken as the chicken's particular set characteristics for one that it lays eggs. The real chicken and the form chicken are thus just as inseparable as body and soul. And that is really the essence of Aristotle's criticism of Plato's theory of ideas. But you should not ignore the fact that this was a dramatic turn of thought. The highest degree of reality in Plato's theory was that which we think with our reason. It was equally apparent to Aristotle that the highest degree of reality is that which we perceive with our senses. Plato thought that all the things we see in the natural world were purely reflections of things that existed in the higher reality of the world of ideas, and thereby in the human soul. Aristotle thought the opposite. Things that are in the human soul were purely reflections of natural objects. So, nature is the real world. According to Aristotle, Plato was trapped in a mythical world picture in which the human imagination was confused with the real world. Aristotle pointed out that nothing exists in consciousness that has not first been experienced by the senses. Plato would have said that there is nothing in the natural world that has not first existed in the world of ideas. Aristotle held that Plato was thus doubling the number of things. He explained a horse by referring to the idea horse. But what kind of an explanation is that, Sophie? Where does the idea horse come from? Is my question. Might there not even be a third horse, which the idea horse is just an imitation of? Aristotle held that all our thoughts and ideas have come into our consciousness through what we have heard and seen. But we also have an innate power of reason. We have no innate ideas, as Plato held, but we have the innate faculty of organizing all sensory impressions into categories and classes. This is how concepts such as stone, plant, animal, and human arise. Similarly, there arise concepts like horse, lobster, and canary. Canary in coal mines, ah? What did you say, Andy? Is my pronunciation right? Canary bird. Yeah. Aristotle did not deny that humans have
Yeah,
innate.
wait. I was speaking on mute. It's called Canary.
Yeah.
And I think we also have Dauji come into the panel. Hello, Dauji. So,
Hello.
welcome to the panel.
Hello.
So, it's called
Thank you.
Canary. So, yeah, please continue, Ms. Gaarder.
Yeah. Aristotle did not deny that humans have innate reason. On the contrary, it is precisely reason, according to Aristotle, that is man's most distinguishing characteristic. But our reason is completely empty until we have sensed something. So man has no innate ideas. So with that ends innate ideas subtopic, and shall we move into the next one? Okay. The form of a
Sir,
thing.
sir, Vishwa sir, we need a bit of commentary about this one, sir. Maybe Vishwa is busy. Okay, Vishwa, please continue. We'll
Yeah,
talk about it later.
sure. The form of a thing is its specific characteristics. Having come to terms with Plato's theory of ideas, Aristotle decided that reality consisted of various separate things that constitute a unity of form and substance. Okay. The substance is what things are made of, while the form is each thing's specific characteristics. A chicken is fluttering about in front of you, Sophie. The chicken's form is precisely that it flutters and that it cackles and lays eggs. So, by the form of a chicken, we mean the specific characteristics of its species, or in other words, what it does. When the chicken dies and cackles no more, its form ceases to exist. The only thing that remains is the chicken's substance, sadly enough, Sophie, but then it is no longer a chicken. As I, early, as I said earlier, Aristotle was concerned with the changes in nature. Substance always contains the potentiality to realize a specific form. We could say that substance always strives toward achieving an innate potentiality. Every change in nature, according to Aristotle, is a transformation of substance from the potential to the actual. Yes, I'll explain what I mean, Sophie. See if this funny story helps you. No, see if this funny story helps you. A sculptor is working on a large block of granite. He hacks away at the formless block every day. One day, a little boy comes by and says, "What are you looking for?" "Wait and see," answers the sculptor. After a few days, the little boy comes back, and now the sculptor has carved a beautiful horse out of the granite. The boy stares at it in amazement. Then he turns to the sculptor and says, "How did you know it was in there?" How indeed. In a sense, the sculptor had seen the horse's form in the block of granite because that particular block of granite had the potentiality to be formed into the shape of a horse. Similarly, Aristotle believed that everything in nature has the potentiality of realizing or achieving a specific form. Let us return to the chicken and the egg. A chicken's egg has the potentiality to become a chicken. This doesn't mean that all chickens' eggs become chickens. Many of them end up on the breakfast table as fried eggs, omelets, or scrambled eggs without ever having realized their potentiality. But it is equally obvious that a chicken's egg cannot become a goose. That potentiality is not within a chicken's egg. The form of a thing then says something about its limitation as well as its potentiality. When Aristotle talks about the substance and form of things, he does not only refer to living organisms. Just as it is the chicken's form to cackle, flutter its wings, and lay eggs, it is the form of the stone to fall to the ground. Just as the chicken cannot help cackling, the stone cannot help falling to the ground. You can, of course, lift a stone and hurl it high into the air, but because it is the stone's nature to fall to the ground, you cannot hurl it to the moon. Take care when you perform this experiment because the stone might take revenge and find the shortest route back to the earth. Okay. Okay. Let's move to the next subtopic, the final cause. Before we leave the subject of all living and dead things having a form that says something about their potential action, I must add that Aristotle had a remarkable view of causality in nature. Today, when we talk about the cause of anything,
Skegaru,
huh,
Skegaru, it is not casualty, it's causality.
causality. Oh,
Yeah.
ma, thank you, ma. Mm. I must add that Aristotle had a remarkable view of causality in nature. Today, when we talk about the cause of anything, we mean how it came to happen. The window pane was smashed because Peter hurled a stone through it. A shoe was made because the shoemaker sews pieces of leather together. But Aristotle held that there were different types of cause in nature. Altogether, he named four different causes. It is important to understand what he meant by what he called the final cause. In the case of window smashing, it is quite reasonable to ask why Peter threw the stone. We are thus asking what his purpose was. There can be no doubt that purpose played a role also in the matter of the shoe being made. But Aristotle also took into account a similar purpose when considering the purely lifeless processes in nature. Here is an example. Why does it rain, Sophie? You have probably learned at school that it rains because the moisture in the clouds cools and condenses into raindrops that are drawn to the earth by the force of gravity. Aristotle would have nodded in agreement, but he would have added that so far you have only mentioned three of the causes. The material cause is that the moisture, the clouds, was there at the precise moment when the air cooled. The efficient cause is that the moisture cools. And the formal cause is that the form or nature of the water is to fall to earth. But if you stopped there, Aristotle would add that it rains because plants and animals need rainwater in order to grow. This he called the final cause. Aristotle assigns the raindrops a life task or purpose. We would probably turn the whole thing upside down and say that plants grow because they find moisture. You can see the difference, can't you, Sophie? Aristotle believed that there is a purpose behind everything in nature. It rains so that plants can grow, oranges and grapes grow so that people can eat them. That is not the nature of scientific reasoning today. We say that food and water are necessary conditions of life for man and beast. Had we not had these conditions, we would not have existed. But it is not the purpose of water or oranges to be food for us. In the question of causality, then, we are tempted to say that Aristotle was wrong. But let us not be too hasty. Many people believe that God created the world as it is so that all his creatures could live in it. Viewed in this way, it can naturally be claimed that there is water in the rivers because animals and humans need water to live. But now we are talking about God's purpose. The raindrops and the waters of the river have no interest in our welfare. Okay, the next subtopic, logic.
Yeah, yeah.
Scaru, shall I take it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Quick interjection. It's creatures, like as in CRE, creatures. Okay.
Okay, not
But
creatures,
Okay,
not
yes, sir.
yeah,
creatures. Mm,
yeah, it's creatures. Yeah,
creatures.
yeah. All right. Sikshadhan garu, over to you.
All right, sir. So the next subtopic is called logic. The distinction between form and substance plays an important part in Aristotle's explanation of the way we discern things in the world. When we discern things, we classify them in various groups or categories. I see a horse, then I see another horse and another. The horses are not exactly alike, but they have something in common, and this common something is the horse form. Whatever might be distinctive or individual belongs to the horse's substance. So we go around pigeonholing everything. We put cows in cowsheds, horses in stables, pigs in pigsties, and chickens in chicken coops. The same happens with the same happens when Sophie Amundsen tidies up her room. She puts her books on the bookshelf, her school books in her school bag, and her magazines in the drawer. Then she folds her clothes neatly and puts them in the closet, underwear on one shelf, sweaters on another, and socks in a drawer on their own. Notice that we do the same thing in our minds. We distinguish between things made of stone, things made of wool, and things made of rubber. We distinguish between things that are alive or dead, and we distinguish between vegetable, animal, and human. Do you see, Sophie? Aristotle wanted to do a thorough clearing up in nature's room. He tried to show that everything in nature belongs to different categories and subcategories. Hermes is a live creature, more specifically an animal, more specifically a vertebrate, more specifically a mammal, more specifically a dog, more specifically a Labrador, more specifically a male Labrador. Go into your room, Sophie, pick up something, anything from the floor. Whatever you take, you will find that what you are holding belongs to a higher category. The day you see something you are unable to classify, you will get a shock. If, for example, you discover a small what's it and you can't really say whether it's an animal, vegetable, or mineral, I don't think you would dare touch it. Saying animal, vegetable, and mineral reminds me of that party game where the victim is sent outside the room. And when he comes in again, he has to guess what everyone else is thinking of. Everyone has agreed to think of Fluffy the cat, which at the moment is in the neighbor's garden. The victim comes in and begins to guess. The others must only answer yes or no. If the victim is a good Aristotelian and therefore no victim, the game could go pretty much as follows. Is it concrete? Yes. Mineral? No. Is it alive? Yes. Vegetable? No. Animal? Yes. Is it a bird? No. Is it a mammal? Yes. Is it the whole animal? Yes. Is it a cat? Yes. Is it fluffy? Yeah. Laughter. So, Aristotle invented that game. We ought to give Plato the credit for having invented hide and seek. Democritus has already been credited with having invented Lego. Aristotle was a meticulous organizer who set out to clarify our concepts. In fact, he founded the science of logic. He demonstrated a number of laws governing conclusions or proofs that were valid. One example will suffice. If I first establish that all living creatures are mortal, first premise, and then establish that Hermes Hermes is a living creature, second premise, I can then elegantly conclude that Hermes is mortal. The example demonstrates that Aristotle's logic was based on the correlation of terms, in this case, living creature and mortal. Even though one has to admit that the above conclusion is 100% valid, we may also add that it hardly tells us anything new. We already knew that Hermes was mortal. He is a dog, and all dogs are living creatures which are mortal, unlike the rock of Mount Everest. Certainly, we knew that, Sophie, but the relationship between classes of things is not always so obvious. From time to time, it can be necessary to clarify our concepts. For example, is it really possible that tiny little baby mice suckle just like lambs and piglets? Mice certainly do not lay eggs. When did I last see a mouse egg? So they give birth to live young, just like pigs and sheep. But we call animals that bear live young mammals live young mammals, and mammals are animals that feed on their mother's milk. So we got there. We had the answer inside us, but we had to think it through. We forgot for the moment that mice really do suckle from their mother. Perhaps it was because we have never seen a baby mouse being suckled, for the simple reason that mice are rather shy of humans when they suckle their young. So that's the end of
Good deal. So form versus substance. Interesting. So now, after reading this, now I have a slightly better appreciation when somebody says he has no substance, right?
sir.
What it means is he is a human being in form, but he doesn't have anything distinguishing about him. So there's no substance to the man, basically, right? Interesting.
Mm.
In a philosophical sense, it gives us a lot more insight when somebody says that, whether they use it in that context or not. All right, let's move on, sir.
Yes.
There's not much to discuss. It's just pure. Now we are slowly getting into the whole logic aspect, right?
We die and we
Yeah,
become
yes, sir.
substance, right?
Sorry, please repeat.
We die and then we become substance.
That is there, but see, he said something like, look, what is common among classes is the form, and what is specific to an individual is the substance, right? That is how they are separating things out. The distinction between form and substance plays an important part in Aristotle's explanation, right? The horses are not exactly alike, but they have something in common, and this common something is the horse's form. Whatever might be distinctive or individual belongs to the horse's substance, basically. Anyway. So when
Yes.
somebody is making an argument that is very uh, textbookish, or what they call as that's a platitude, then you say that he doesn't have any substance. He's just parroting a line, right? There's no
Yeah.
substance
Yes.
behind it. There's no originality, or they're not connecting any new
Specificity.
dots. They're not connecting any new dots, right?
Yeah.
Or there is a lot of chatter that happens, but there is no real insight. Then you say there's no substance.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Absolutely,
yeah,
sir.
go ahead, sir. Scale.
All right. So the next subchapter is nature's scale. When Aristotle clears up in life, he first of all points out that everything in the natural world can be divided into two main categories. On the one hand, there are non-living things such as stones, drops of water, or clumps of soil. These things have no potentiality for change. According to Aristotle, non-living things can only change through external influence. Only living things have the potentiality for change. Aristotle divides living things into two different categories. One comprises plants and the other creatures. Finally, these creatures can also be divided into two subcategories, namely animals and humans. You have to admit that Aristotle's categories are clear and simple. There is a decisive difference between a living and a non-living thing. For example, a rose and a stone, just as there is a decisive difference between a plant and an animal, for example, a rose and a horse. I would also claim that there definitely is a difference between a horse and a man. But what exactly does this difference consist of? Can you tell me that? Unfortunately, I do not have time to wait while you write the answer down and put it in a pink envelope with a lump of sugar, so I'll answer myself. When Aristotle divides natural phenomena into various categories, his criterion is the object's characteristics, or more specifically, what it can do or what it does. All living things, plants, animals, humans, have the ability to absorb nourishment, to grow, and to propagate. All living creatures, animals and humans, have in addition the ability to perceive the world around them and to move about. Moreover, all humans have the ability to think, or otherwise to order their perceptions into various categories and classes. So there are in reality no sharp boundaries in the natural world. We observe a gradual transition from simple growths to more complicated plants, from simple animals to more complicated animals. At the top of this scale is man, who, according to Aristotle, lives the whole life of nature. Man grows and absorbs nourishment like plants. He has feelings and the ability to move like animals. But he also has a specific characteristic peculiar to humans, and that is the ability to think rationally. Therefore, man has a spark of divine reason, Sophie. Yes, I did say divine. From time to time, Aristotle reminds us that there must be a God who started all movement in the natural world. Therefore, God must be at the very top of nature's scale. Aristotle imagined the movement of the stars and the planets guiding all movement on earth. But there had to be something causing the heavenly bodies to move. Aristotle called this the first mover or God. The first mover is itself at rest, but it is the formal cause of the movement of the heavenly bodies and thus of all movement in nature.
Okay.
The end of the
So I
nature's
think we
story.
can probably stop at this point and then discuss, because there are a lot of
Okay, sir.
ideas that came about basically, right?
Yes, sir.
See, one thing I'll tell you, I mean, I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but when I remember in my third class science, when the teacher starts introducing science, they take this Aristotle framework for granted. At least when I was
Yes.
taught, that kids, the teachers used to say, look, uh, there are two types of beings in this universe, right? Living things and non-living things.
Yeah,
And then
I
they say,
remember as
look,
well, sir.
yeah, what are give some examples of non-living things like stones, blah blah, etc. And then living things like animals, plants, whatever it is, right? And then you start with classification and species and that and this and all that, the five types of animals, vertebrates, invertebrates, blah blah, and then so you just go without really questioning. They take this, even till today, they take this framework for granted, basically, right? There have been others that try to explain it differently, but whatever framework this fellow has put together has stuck for more than whatever 2,500 years or whatever you want to call it. How many ever years? More than 2 millennia, basically, right? Which is quite fascinating for some idea to remain for that long without fundamentally being changed, right? And he even talked about this idea of first mover, right? Which is also interesting, right? Which basically, the moment you start thinking logically, at some point you'll have to come to the conclusion that you do not know what started all this. It's just that they used to call it God, right? Uh, in this case, some kind of a being or some kind of an entity that is above the humans, causing that caused everything to come into being. You can explain it physically, like a Big Bang theory or physics explanation, but some people also like a bit more philosophical explanation. That is physical plus metaphysical, basically. So I'll pause here. Any questions, comments? Siksha Garu, Davji, and SK.
Uh, not not much, sir, but I'm trying to get a hang of it and what you're trying to. But actually, this is a very lot. I mean, it is a heavy subject, and we need what do you call it? Uh, Vivid imagination to seep things into your mind.
Yeah.
Should
And
be
remember
crazy.
that it didn't come about just like that one person sitting and thinking about things. I'm sure there were a lot of
So,
discussions and there was a lot of debate back and forth where there was one idea and then multiple ideas questioning that idea, and then eventually, slowly, either the questions were answered or the people accepted this to be more acceptable given the observation in nature. And then this was the idea that stood finally.
actually, what I find in Aristotle's uh, what do you say? This can we call this preaching, sir,
I don't
or
know. This
this
is philosophy.
ideology?
There's no preaching.
Okay, this philosophy, I find it. Mm, I don't think he has achieved all on his own, sir. I mean, it is this is too much for one person to achieve in one lifetime, sir. Because why I'm saying this is he must have learned much from the previous knowledge that has been existing in the world. He must have drawn conclusions out of them as well.
Yeah, that's 100% given. I mean, you don't start from zero if you are in
Yeah,
this line
and
of thinking, right?
yes, sir.
I mean, even
Because
Plato came before Aristotle, right?
oh, okay,
So
sir.
there are a lot of Plato's ideas to either examine, build upon, whatever it is. And even till today, if you are a researcher, PhD, right,
Yeah.
doctor in philosophy, for example, any field, the first thing you do
Yes,
is
sir.
you start with literature survey.
Oh,
That is the first step in the research process, which is you first see what has already been done.
yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yes, sir. I'm done, sir. Anything from SK Garu and Daoji,
yeah.
please.
Raju is very quiet. He must
Otherwise,
have done very well in the exams.
otherwise we'll jump into the next chapter
Otherwise, yeah, exactly. Otherwise, we'll hear him
at
talk about it
the
a lot. So,
final dialogue. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Okay. But he's quiet anyway. Can you hear us? Raju, say yes. If you can hear us, say no if you can't hear us.
Yes,
Okay, good.
Okay.
I was hoping that you will actually unmute and say no.
yes.
So you need to talk. Okay, SK Garu, your turn.
లేదండి. But Siksha, I think, wanted to discuss on that Plato, Aristotle approach లో.
Innate ideas versus
Uh,
ideas being somewhere. The idea
in
exists
last
before
session,
the.
you were like, you brought up a comparison with Sankhya framework, top down and bottom up,
Yeah,
right?
that is. Yeah, that is a very, very. We need to do a separate session on that because look, it's almost nearly. It's very difficult to compare because the starting points are different, and nobody can put a timeline on the Sankhya philosophy. That's the other problem. Here, at least, there is documented history. Sankhya is the oldest Indian darsana, basically, and there's no timeline for it because I mean, the funny part about the Indian side is Indians view time itself as a concept and the cyclicality of
Correct,
it
sir.
and things like that. So our approach is it's not important. Time is not that important as important as the idea of the idea, basically.
So, sir, what I would not call philosophers who are Indian, but so great people. I'll just say great people. So
You know.
what they what they gave to the world, the knowledge transcends the time, sir. So I don't think when was uh, the particular philosophy that you said, Sankhya, was compiled. That's my take, sir.
Yeah, I mean, see, we just now spoke about how it's important to that they borrow from ideas of their times and then they build on top
Mm.
of it, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah. So for example, everybody knows that Shankara had some discussions with the Buddhists, basically. So
Mm.
it's interesting to know that fact. you add it to the mix of your entire equation, that can give you a little bit more context as to how things were arrived at. But that said, for Sankhya being the first one, there is no timeline and neither is there any comparison. We don't know what the
Yes, sir.
contemporary other philosophies were. You can put a timeline on it, but it's not, the veracity of it is not very strong, basically.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So,
Shall we move into that?
yeah, Daoji said he needs a few more minutes. So, yeah, go to ethics. Let's see. Let's see what we ethics, politics, etc., etc. So let's see. Let's do
All right, sir.
probably one more page and then we can stop with the reading part.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay. So, ethics.
Yeah, Largaru, great timing. He arrives when we started discussing ethics.
Correct, sir.
Just came back from
Yeah,
outside.
welcome to the panel, sir.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Hello, hello.
Right, sir. So, jumping into this next subchapter, ethics. It starts as let us go back to man, Sophie. According to Aristotle, man's form comprises a soul, which has a plant like part, an animal part, and a rational part. And now he asks, how should we live? What does it require to live a good life? His answer, man can only achieve happiness by using all his abilities and capabilities. Aristotle held that there are three forms of happiness. The first form of happiness is a life of pleasure and enjoyment. The second form of happiness is a life as a free and responsible citizen. The third form of actually, sir, the second form he said, the second form of happiness is a life as a free and responsible citizen. I don't know how freedom and responsibility will go hand in hand. It's if someone is holding on to a responsibility, then how is he
No,
free?
it
That's my
says
question, sir.
free
Yes, sir.
and responsible. You may be
And
free, but you
responsible.
may not be responsible. So that's how it is. You may not be free, but you'll still be held responsible.
Okay, so I am here.
Yeah. Okay, Daoji, let's complete this chapter and we'll.
Freedom,
No,
by the way, freedom and responsibility going hand in hand is actually the most important tenet of any constitutionality, even. So they are
okay.
intimately tied together. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. No, I was saying I will be busy after 10 minutes. That's why I was interrupting. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, your
Yeah,
interruption is
go ahead,
welcome.
go
Please
ahead.
go ahead.
So first I want to ask, we will complete only ethics or and politics, or after that view on women also.
No,
I
no,
wanted
no.
to ask
You,
that.
you are women next session because that can become
Okay.
controversial.
Okay. So
Yeah,
ethics and politics. Okay.
yeah.
So Aristotle is known for some degree of what we say disagreement with Plato. We already discussed about that. But I wanted to point out that Aristotle was the person that like as a teacher I give most of the example of Aristotle most of the time, you know, because the Aristotle was like more relatable subject other than Plato and Aristotle, because Aristotle said some things maybe not mentioned in this book, but he said some things that are more relatable for students. First thing is that he said the next generation is fool. Okay, in that time he said the generation is coming along is fool's generation. They have no intellect, no what we say buddhi or vivek, whatever. Okay, or and same goes for our generation, previous generation, and before that also. So all the generation thinks that the next generation is fool. Okay, so that's the example I give to student, that every time you think that your elders say that you are a fool, it's not his problem, it's Aristotle problem. So it's quite a funny example in some sense. I maybe not be able to deliver in that funny scenario now. Okay, but that's also his philosophy. So
Mm.
in Hindi I will conclude that हर जनरेशन को लगता है कि आने वाली जनरेशन बेवकूफ है, और ये 3,000 साल पहले, लाइक 3,000 years बैक उसने ये कहा था.
Mm.
यस ना विश्व?
वो तो सही है.
एवरी No, so every generation thinks that. So it's not,
No, it is
Actually,
a,
it's not
it
that.
is correct
Dawji,
also.
yeah, Dawji, I will tell you something.
Yeah.
Kalidasa, on the other hand, told the exact opposite, by the way.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So his argument was it is natural that the next generation is more intelligent because of, I mean, he had an evolutionary theory built in his mind. He didn't quite call it evolution, but
Yeah.
he said the next generation, it makes sense that it is smarter. It's just that you have to
Hmm.
be, you have to have the discerning capability to take what is
Hmm.
good from the previous generation and reject what is
Hmm.
not good. And he said
Yeah.
that discerning capability is where I don't know if they'll have it.
Yep.
Okay, which is
So
a
that's what,
which is a
where
very subtle, yeah.
you just concluded my thought, because
Okay,
that's what I tell my students, that there are some things that you need to learn from your elders, from previous generation, and some things that you need to exclude from your actions, like the bad habits of previous generation. So that's how we evolve.
correct.
And definitely it's his philosophy and ethics and policies, politics also will give you more insight about him. And you can continue now. I will join in the next session. Thank you for the
Yeah,
reading.
Dauji, you have a. I hope your exams went well. You have a wonderful Sunday. Okay.
Array, my exams were like chumma. Very good.
Okay, cool.
I'm completing my presentation now. Like today, I was too busy in reading and what we say, research. I was doing some research on topics that I need to present. So my presentation date is on, like, project date is 7 on the Bakr Eid.
Oh, okay.
So there is no holiday for me on Bakr Eid. My college was like, which Eid?
Well,
What Eid? What Eid? There is no Eid. You need to come.
you are doing the presentation, so either you are the virtual Bakra or the audience, depending on how you do.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Bakara is the teacher.
Exactly. All
Okay.
right. Yeah. All right. Best of luck. We'll talk to you.
Yeah. Let's see how my substance work.
Exactly. Do you have? Is it all form or is there any substance? Right. That is the thing.
No, there is substance. Most of them is formed by ChatGPT, but there are some substance also.
Okay. Cool. Cool. No, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. Okay. All right. 6:32.
Daoji,
Please proceed. Yeah.
Daoji, you are revealing your secrets live on YouTube. You should be
No, no.
much more
Nowadays, if
careful
you
with
don't
that.
even
use ChatGPT,
even the teacher no. I asked my teacher, refer me a book that I can go for that. Like my topic is a fine arts, like Chitrakala and Murtikala, sculpture and painting. Okay, so I was doing some research on that, but he said go chat GPT. I was like, okay, you are not giving me any book or something. Okay then.
yeah. Nowadays,
So
if you
there
don't
is no
use
secret on it.
ChatGPT, the teachers are also like, "What? You don't know how to use ChatGPT? Why don't you use it?"
Yeah, they say go for a prompt learning exercise, like video. Such
Exactly.
prompt learning, how to do a prompt. I said rendo, let it be. I know how to do it.
Exactly.
Okay, continue.
All
Huh?
right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks,
Yeah,
Dawji. Yeah. Go ahead, sir. Please.
yeah, all right. Okay. So, into the chapter of ethics. Let us go back to man, Sophie. According to Aristotle, man's form comprises a soul, which has a plant like part, an animal part, and a rational part. And now he asks, how should we live? What does it require to live a good life? His answer, man can only achieve happiness by using all his abilities and capabilities. Aristotle held that there are three forms of happiness. The first form of happiness is a life of pleasure and enjoyment. The second form of happiness is a life as a free and responsible citizen. The third form of happiness is a life as a thinker and philosopher. Aristotle then emphasized that all three criteria must be present at the same time for man to find happiness and fulfillment. He rejected all forms of imbalance. Had he lived today, he might have said that a person who only develops his body, a person who only develops his body lives a life that is just as unbalanced as someone who only uses his head. Both extremes are an expression of a warped way of life. The same applies in human relationships, where Aristotle advocated that the golden mean. We must be neither cowardly nor rash, but courageous. Too little courage is cowardice, too much is rashness. Neither miserly nor extravagant, but liberal. Not liberal enough is miserly. Too liberal is extravagant. The same goes for eating. It is dangerous to eat too little, but also dangerous to eat too much. The ethics of both Plato and Aristotle contain echoes of Greek medicine. Only by exercising balance and temperance will I achieve a happy or harmonious life. Next, into the chapter of politics. The undesirability of cultivating extremes is also expressed in Aristotle's view of society. He says that man is by nature a political animal. Without a society around us, we are not real people, he claimed. He pointed out that the family and the village satisfy our primary needs of food, warmth, marriage, and child rearing. But the highest form of human fellowship is only to be found in the state. This leads to the question of how the state should be organized. You remember Plato's philosophic state? Aristotle describes three good forms of constitution. One is monarchy or kingship, which means there is only one head of state. For this type of constitution to be good, it must not degenerate into tyranny. That is, when one ruler governs the state to his own advantage. Another good form of constitution is aristocracy, in which there is a larger or smaller group of rulers. This constitutional form must beware of degenerating into an oligarchy when the government is run by a few people. An example of that would be a junta. The third good constitutional form is what Aristotle called polity, which means democracy. But this form also has its negative aspect. A democracy can quickly develop into mob rule. Even if the tyrannic Hitler had not become head of state in Germany, all the lesser Nazis could have formed a terrible a terrifying mob rule. All right.
Okay.
All right, sir. There ends the
So there
chapter
ends
of.
the ethics and politics side of Aristotle's thought process. Yeah.
Right,
Any
sir.
questions, comments? The next chapter is what views on women. We'll start with that next episode. Hopefully, SK Garu will join us and she can read that. Right?
Yes. We need.
Interesting ideas there. But yeah, so ethics, politics, etc. The three different aspects of human nature. These are all very interesting worldviews, right? In fact, those worldviews are still held even today by many people in the West.
Yes, sir. The golden mean.
Kadu,
So,
నాకు
which means,
ethics లో
yeah,
first in the first paragraph of ethics subtopic, right?
yes.
There is something which says, um, according to Aristotle, man's form comprises a soul which has a plant-like part, animal part, and a rational part.
Hmm.
So, so then we are all rational, right? So, how much of rational percentage part should I have for me to say that I am a rationalist?
I do not know. That's a good question, actually. So, the thing is, I think it's one of those things where, this is my opinion, it's one of those things where every person has to find their own balance, right? 100% rationality is not uh, palatable to everybody.
I mean, we are all rational in our own way,
Correct.
right?
So the
Like,
thing is this, right? There are certain aspects of life where rationality or being rational doesn't yield the same level of results as being a little bit more instinctive, right? Being rational means you are trying to analyze everything, thinking about everything, right?
then slowly you become less human. The more that
Not
part.
less human. So here is the way I look at it. There is a certain balance. It's like your own chemistry, right? There is your own
Golden mean.
chemistry. Yeah, there is your own chemistry or your own nature that dictates that you have a certain mix of these three, let's say. But without understanding your own nature, if you try to uh, impose somebody else's framework on you, let's say there is some person X that you hold very uh, in high esteem, and they are 100% rational, as in like they are always rational, basically, right? They don't exhibit any of the other two characteristics. But when you try to be like them, then it might throw your own balance off, basically, because it's not palatable to you. So the conclusion is everybody has to first examine their own nature and figure out what makes them the happiest, know their boundaries, and then play within those boundaries, basically. Right? This is my 2 cents. Yeah. Because, I mean, for example, somebody who is a very staunch believer, like Mother Teresa, right? You try and go talk to Mother Teresa about rationality, she'll just laugh because that's not her worldview, right? In her view, a deep belief is very important. For her, everything is guided by belief in Christ, right?
No, but she's the same person who said, okay, that candidate is anyways dying, let the person die, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So
she is neither rational nor human nor emotional, nothing. She's just an agenda driven person.
that is not how I would put it. What gave her happiness was that, basically.
So she chooses to decide on who deserves to get a treatment done.
That is none of anybody's, I mean, that's how she views the world, basically, right? Now, you can call it
My
inhumane, you can call it
Yeah.
illegal, whatever you want to call it.
No, my
But
point is that
yeah,
that is never a mother.
you,
That's
you can give whatever labels you want. That is the behavior that she chose that made her happy. So here we are talking about, look, what is the recipe for a man's happiness? That's what Aristotle is talking about. Aristotle held that there are three forms of happiness, right? So
Yeah.
she didn't want to do any thinking and philosophizing.
Mm.
For her, being just a believer and then just using that to guide her life that's what made her happy, right? Now you can call it illegal, or you can try to state some of the laws of the country and say she didn't do something. That's a different conversation altogether.
Yeah.
Because look, the beauty of it is the law doesn't govern ethics. Larger is here, so he can tell you. You cannot legalize ethical behavior. You can only legalize legal behavior, right? Because law and order comes with punishment if the law is disobeyed, basically. But ethics is a gray zone, right? Between complete chaos and the perfect law and order state.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have seen many examples, and now they'll come more and more into the limelight. There are a lot of people uh, preaching rationality to everybody, right? To the entire population. At some point in time, you will start seeing these wholesale examples or populations becoming um, either vic- eh, clinically diagnosed for anxiety disorders, for hyperactivity and things like that, because their chemistry doesn't allow them to be 100% rational all the time, right? Because if you remove certain assurances, not everybody is able to deal with the uncertainty. Their mind does not allow them to say that, look, life is fundamentally uncertain.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
They can deny it all they want. That rationality is the only philosophy that works for everybody. That is their worldview. But there are many, you can deny the outcomes, but they are there, right? You cannot disagree with facts. The rational person, if you are rational, then you have to accommodate for that fact that it is true. You know, if you don't take that into account, then you are not rational anymore. You are agenda driven, like you said, which is fine. If that works for you, that's fine. But don't call yourself something that you are not. Right? A truly rational person will accept that there are certain people who require faith to be happy in their life. Concluding statement.
Correct.
Yeah.
They'll
The
use their rationality to to put themselves in the others' shoes, others' lives, and see why they are doing whatever they're doing first.
correct, correct.
And
And
try
why
to, yeah,
exactly, and why it might be necessary for them to
correct.
function. Exactly. You got it, SK, as always. Sikshardhan, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, sir. I wasn't saying anything.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
I wanted to
Yeah.
say something else back when we are talking about Mother Teresa.
Mm. I mean, you realize
Uh,
that that's not the topic of discussion, right? So please go ahead. It's okay.
yes. So she thought uh, she did what uh, so she did some things which gave her happiness, and we may call it illegal or whatever. That might be a different thing you said, sir. But can she herself be critical of herself and call what she is doing to other people is inhumane?
Who knows? She is no more. So we don't have a chance to. We can only speculate.
Right, sir. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
she did
because
not believe. Yeah.
especially talking about Mother Teresa, like Shravan Garu did one session, gada. We did one session in Manavahini about her, right? That's when I got to know few things, few extra things about her, other than the whole mother image that I grew up knowing. So after that, I felt like she's not a true God believer. She's not. She doesn't have that full mother in her. she she is very less human compared to even me, leave alone rationality. So yeah.
yeah, agree with you, SK.
Even just a blind God believer wouldn't even do few things, few decisions that she had to take for whatever reasons. Yeah, now
The
we
thing
can't change
is,
history, right? Yeah, people become Mahatmas, mothers for reasons which
yeah, I
we don't
think we
know.
should stop calling mother as a,
Yeah.
stop calling her mother. Maybe we should call her Teresa, or
Mm. With her given name,
her
whatever.
original name is
Yeah.
Agnes. Something is there, Sister Agnes or something like that. What's there? So
All right.
I thought of saying something. Yeah.
Okay.
It's gone. It is gone, sir. Okay, all right,
No,
sir.
that's okay.
Please continue, sir.
There's nothing to. Uh, okay, with that, we'll wrap the session. I think there's another session in 20 minutes in Manavahini. So we'll give Lawyer also a break and then hopefully we'll join that session. So whoever joined, thank you very much, including panelists.
Sir, can I
Jostein Gaarder.
interject for a
Yeah.
minute?
Sir, please.
ఇందాక మీరు చెప్పారు కదా, said, see, in law also, when you are making laws, the local ethics and the cultural things will also be embedded in the law. Usually, that will be taken into consideration. Because the same morality you cannot apply elsewhere. You might borrow a law, but the morality you have to apply the local morality only. So that's how usually things run. I mean, it may not be crime here, it might be crime elsewhere,
Correct. Correct.
or vice versa.
Correct. There is the ethics influences the law, basically.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. All right. So with that, thank you very much, panelists. Thanks for whoever watched the stream. And whoever is going to watch the stream, please stream later. Please like and subscribe. We welcome your comments. If you have any comments, please put them in the comment section. I'll try to respond. Have a wonderful rest of the Sunday, wherever you are in the world. Have a good day. Bye.